Millions of us travel Wisconsin's roadways every day, and we all deserve to make it to our destination safely. So here's the thing. No matter what time of day you're driving, odds are you'll share the road with a large truck. You know, a semi. In the industry, they're known as a commercial motor vehicle, or CMV for short. Most of us have never been behind the wheel of one of these big rigs, so it's easy to underestimate just how difficult it can be to drive one. The stopping distance in a CMV is greater than in your car because a CMV weighs more. These rigs have to make wider turns than your personal vehicle. Plus, they have blind spots that make us basically invisible to the truck driver if we're not careful. Today, we're going to talk about factors that impact CMV drivers and how you can stay safe when driving near them. Specifically, we'll talk about how to avoid no zones, travel safely next to a CMV in a roundabout, eliminate distractions, and respond to extreme weather. You've probably noticed that you have a small blind spot or two when driving your car. Well, CMVs have them too, but on a much larger scale. These areas are what we're calling no zones. They're one of the biggest trouble areas when it comes to sharing the road with semis.
The blind spots are a lot bigger when it comes to commercial vehicles. If you want to pass a vehicle that's large, I always suggest to pass on the driver's side because that blind spot is a little bit smaller because the mirror is closer to us. As drivers, we're taught to look in our mirrors every 5 to 8 seconds. So if you have to stay next to a truck, just make sure you can see the driver and we should be able to see you.
The no zones on the trucks are basically we have 4 blind spots, the front, both sides, and in the rear. And what those no zones are places where your car will disappear out of our mirrors, so we can't see you anymore. So if you hang out in that area, then if we need to change lanes or something happens, we don't know you're there because we've lost sight of you in our mirrors.
In fact, CMVs have large areas on each side of them where we disappear from the truck driver's sight. These areas are critical for the truck driver to compensate for, but also for you to be aware of when driving nearby. You probably guessed there's a no zone at the back of the truck. And then, of course, there's one on each side. But did you know there's one right in front of the truck, too? Some people forget about that one. Each no zone is a bit different from truck to truck because of the size of the truck and the placement of the mirrors in relation to the driver. You want to avoid no zones whenever possible. But there'll be times you have no choice but to enter them, like when passing or when you are traveling next to a semi on the highway. The sooner you can get in and out of a no zone, the better. Let's start with the rear no zone first. Imagine you're cruising along. You can tell you're catching up to a semi. You're in a hurry to get where you're going, and the last thing you need is to get stuck behind a slow-moving truck. You might have the urge to ride their bumper in hopes they'll get the hint to go faster. Sound familiar? The reality is, tailgating any vehicle, especially a large truck, is extremely dangerous. The rear no zone is located at the back of the truck and extends 30 feet. To put it into perspective, that's about 2.5 car lengths. If you're within that no zone, the truck driver cannot see you. A good rule is to look for the truck's side mirrors. If you can see them, that's good. That means the driver of that truck can see you too. If you can't see the side mirrors, you're in the rear no zone, and that driver likely has no clue you're there. Give yourself some space to react. If you're following too close and the truck driver hits the brakes, you're not going to be able to stop in time. Even worse, the back of the trailer is right about at the level of your windshield. The outcome could be deadly. Let's think about it. What if there's a car in front of the truck you're tailgating that's moving slow? Maybe there's random debris on the road. Or someone driving in front of you blows out a tire. What if an animal jumps out? In any of these situations, if you're tailgating, you won't have enough time to respond. Stay on the safe side and stay far enough back. No zones also exist on both sides of a truck. You can see the one on the right is bigger than the one on the left. But make no mistake, both areas can be equally dangerous to you. When driving alongside a truck, there are times when your car will fully disappear in the truck driver's blind spot when you enter the side no zones. Take a look. Watch the car on the right side of the truck from above and from the driver's view. As the car enters the no zone, it vanishes completely. If the car stays in that spot, the truck driver may turn or make a lane change, never knowing it's there. Let's see that from the left side. The same thing happens. The car is gone. So you're finishing up your pass. Make sure you can see both headlights and the windshield of the truck before you pull in front of it. Reason being, the 20 feet in front of a truck is considered its front no zone. If you're within that space, the truck driver might not be able to see you. If you need to suddenly hit the brakes, the size and weight of CMVs definitely won't give truck drivers enough room to slow their roll in time. Fact is, it takes a CMV more time to stop than your car does. If you think you can dart in front of a truck and it will stop as fast as you do, think again. Give them room.
They have the common misperception that we can stop as fast as they can. So when we're going down the interstate or coming down on a regular side street in the towns, they think that they can get around us really fast, get in front of us, and then we'll be able to stop as fast as they can. So they get in front of us and stop. Usually that ends up in us hitting them in the rear end.
Just be careful because you're never going to win around us. We're just too big, on that. And, don't just be smart about being around the trucks. If you go to pass, don't sit there and hang beside us. Hurry up and speed up and, pass us, and then you can slow down, on that. Because if we move over for you to get onto the ramp, we want you to, either get behind us or in front of us, because we gave you the courtesy of moving over, and don't leave us hang out in that left lane.
There are other places on the road to be extra cautious around semis. Freeway on-ramps are one of these areas. Everyone is working together to keep traffic moving smoothly. Do your part too. Keep an eye out for any merging vehicles, especially large trucks. Depending on where you are compared to the truck, give them the space they need to enter the flow of traffic safely. Off-ramps can be interesting for CMVs too. Because of the weight of their trucks, drivers are taught to reduce their speed to 5 miles an hour under the posted ramp speed limit. So, if you notice them going slower than you'd like, that's probably why. Plus, if the ramp is curved, the truck may need to go even slower to avoid tipping over. Keep this in mind when you're following behind. Love 'em or hate 'em, roundabouts are more popular than ever and here to stay. By design, roundabouts require vehicles to travel at lower speeds to safely navigate through them. In some roundabouts, CMVs just don't fit like your personal vehicle. Truck drivers put a lot of effort into planning their moves when entering a roundabout. They know which lanes they need. They know how to position themselves within the lane, and they have to allow themselves room for making wide turns. Many times, semis will use the far left lane and let their trailer tires ride up on the truck apron, which is specifically designed to help larger vehicles turn safely through a roundabout. Needless to say, they're on constant alert for everything around them.
As we are going around a roundabout and a vehicle is trying to come as well, it's just great for the vehicle to keep their distance and to be patient, and when we are going around a roundabout, to let the CMVs go first and then they follow suit.
A newer driver doesn't get how much room a truck needs to get through a roundabout. So they'll put themselves in a position that where we'll have to stop for them because they don't realize what we're doing. So if they just give us a couple extra seconds, let us take the roundabout, we'll get out of their way.
The blind spots we talked about earlier come back into play here. As semis move through the roundabout, there's little to no visibility to the right until they start to make the turn to exit the roundabout. Knowing this, it's understandable why trucks need to take it slow through roundabouts. Their size demands it, and they're trying to make sure they're seeing everything that's going on around them. Oh, and one last thing to be aware of. Since truck drivers have trouble seeing us in roundabouts and need more space to maneuver, give them the right of way. There's no need to get in a fender bender because it looks like you've got the room. Driving is a simple task. Or is it? There are lots of things happening at the same time, even if we make it look easy. Staying alert on the road needs to be your main focus. Let's look at the types of distractions that exist. Driving distractions can typically be categorized as visual, physical, or mental, although a single distraction can also be a combination of the three. When you're driving, any non-driving activity you engage in is a distraction. Distractions increase your risk of crashing. Visual distractions take your focus away from driving. Sure, it might be a breathtaking sunset, a crash scene, or an animal out in the field. And it's natural you can't help but notice these things. But don't give them more than a brief glance while driving. Keep your eyes on the road to ensure you're ready to respond to any change in driving conditions. Physical distractions require you to take your hands off the wheel. Grabbing your soda can or water bottle, or reaching for your bag on the passenger seat. Regardless of what you're doing, if you have to take at least one hand off the wheel, it's considered a physical distraction. Mental distractions are thinking about something other than driving. You might be going through the motions of driving, hands on the wheel, foot on the gas, but in your head, you're not focused on driving. You're worrying about being late, rehashing a discussion you had with a friend, or thinking about how much fun you're going to have this weekend. It's natural to think about something other than driving for a few seconds, but it can very quickly turn dangerous if you dwell on it too long. Something that combines all three of these distractions is texting while driving. CMV drivers are not allowed to do it, and for good reason. Texting while driving is considered to be as dangerous as driving drunk. It's illegal. Don't do it. Even glancing at your phone for a split second could create deadly consequences. It's just not worth it.
Well, it comes down to just about 90% of all accidents are human error. And the key component there usually is distraction. The advent of the smartphone and cell phones is a blessing. At the same time, it's a curse when it comes to driving. To do two at the same time proves to be usually a recipe for disaster. And so we see that way too often, texting, just plain talking on the phone. That distraction, even though your eyes are on the road, your brain is functioning in two different ways, and that many times leads to problems.
In many areas of the country, there are distinct seasons which can impact driving conditions. Regardless of what the climate is like where you live, you know how unpredictable the weather can be. Truck drivers are prepared and experienced to drive through it all. The types of extreme weather change as the seasons change. For example, in a Wisconsin summer, there's usually rain and fog. In winter, snow and ice are more common, and wind plays a factor year-round. Driving in rain or snow will make it hard enough to see out your windshield, but your visibility will be made worse by rain or snow spray from the 18 wheels of a CMV. Not to mention that rain or snow can reduce the traction your tires have on the surface of the road, so slow down. Whether it's foggy, rainy, windy, snowy, or icy, you'll want to slow down, increase your following distance, and turn on your low-beam headlights.
Some things you could do in severe weather. First, before you leave, make sure your wipers are working, make sure your headlights are working, your tail lights, brake lights. Have somebody help you out with that because of depending on heavy rain, snow, fog. You want to make sure you're visible to the other drivers.
In any situation, remember the three letters PCC: patience, common sense, and courtesy. So when you're driving, just remember. That's what you need to follow, because you use those every day of your life, no matter if you're driving or not. So if you're, keep those in mind and just use basically your good old common sense that you were born with.
Severe weather, just give yourself enough time. If you're 40 miles an hour away from work, just take and give yourself an extra 15 minutes.
When weather gets bad, give truckers a break. Think about it. If the weather is causing you to change how you're driving, the same thing is true for semis. Give them extra room and leave yourself even more time to react in case something bad happens. So, to sum it all up, remember to stay out of the no zones. And don't forget, there are places on the road that make staying out of those no zones even more important, like on and off ramps and roundabouts. Keep yourself from getting distracted while you're driving. Put the phone down. Reading or writing that message can wait. And when the weather outside gets frightful, give the big rigs a break. They're doing their best to keep us safe, so we should certainly do the same.